The stars looked the same as they always did from the bridge of the Venture's edge. Captain Jake Morrison stood with his hands behind his back, watching the swirl of colors that meant they were traveling faster than light. In a few minutes, they would drop back into normal space near a planet that had never been explored before. "Captain, we're coming up on the target system," said Commander Ryan Hayes from his position at the tactical station. Ryan had been with Jake for 5 years now, and Jake trusted him completely. "Sensors are picking up one planet in the habitable zone." Jake nodded and walked over to the science station where Dr. Lisa Grant was already studying her screens. Lisa was the best xenobiologist in the human fleet, which was not saying much since humans had only been in space for 800 years. Most of the galaxy still thought of them as newcomers. "What do you see, Lisa?" Jake asked. Lisa looked up from her instruments. Her brown hair was pulled back in a ponytail, and she had the excited look she always got when she found something interesting. "The planet has oxygen and water. There are definitely ruins of some kind on the main continent. Big ones." The ship shuddered slightly as they dropped out of faster-than-light travel. Through the main screen, they could see a blue and green world that looked almost like Earth. White clouds swirled around continents covered in forests and grasslands. "Take us into orbit, Ryan," Jake ordered. "Lisa, get your team ready. We're going down to take a look." 2 hours later, Jake, Lisa, and a small team were walking through ruins that took their breath away. The buildings were made of a white stone that seemed to glow in the sunlight. They were arranged in perfect geometric patterns that stretched for kilometers in every direction. "This is incredible," said Ben Carter, the team's archaeologist. He was a young man who had joined the crew just 6 months ago, fresh out of the academy on Earth. "These buildings are at least 50,000 years old, maybe older." Amy Stone, their linguist, was studying symbols carved into one of the building walls. She was quiet and careful, the kind of person who noticed details others missed. "Captain, you need to see this," she said. Jake walked over to where Amy was kneeling. The symbols were carved deep into the white stone, worn smooth by thousands of years of weather. But they were still clear enough to read. "Do you recognize the writing?" Jake asked. Amy nodded slowly. "It's not exactly the same, but it looks like ancient human languages. See this symbol here? It's almost identical to Old Sanskrit. And this one looks like ancient Greek." Ben had been scanning the ruins with his equipment. "The energy readings are off the charts," he said. "There's technology here that's still active after all this time. It's more advanced than anything the Zeltharians or the Kythera have." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. The Zeltharian Empire controlled most of the galaxy's trade routes and considered themselves the most advanced species. The Kythera Collective had technology that seemed like magic to most other races. If Ben was right, then whoever built this place was far ahead of both of them. "Lisa, are you picking up anything about who lived here?" Jake asked. Lisa was using a device that could analyze genetic traces left behind by living beings. "The interesting thing is what I'm not finding," she said. "There's no alien DNA anywhere. No traces of any species we know about." "Then who built all this?" Ryan asked. He had been keeping watch while the science team worked, but now he was staring at the massive structures around them. "I don't know," Lisa said. "But whoever they were humanoid. The doorways are the right size for people like us. The stairs are built for legs about our length. Even the handholds on the walls are positioned where humans would put their hands." They spent the rest of the day exploring and taking measurements. Every new discovery was more amazing than the last. They found rooms filled with devices that still hummed with power. They found star maps carved into walls that showed the entire galaxy in perfect detail. They found libraries with information stored in crystals that their computers could barely begin to read. As the sun began to set, Jake called his team back to the ship. They had enough data to keep scientists busy for years, but he wanted to report their findings to Earth as soon as possible. "What do you think, Captain?" Lisa asked as they flew back to the Venture's edge. "Who were they?" Jake shook his head. "I don't know. But I have a feeling this is going to change everything." They were right, but not in the way they expected. When Jake sent his report to Earth and copied it to the Galactic Council, the response was swift and dismissive. High Chancellor Vextar of the Zeltharian Empire sent a message within days. His reptilian face filled the communication screen, his golden eyes cold with disdain. "The humans present interesting fairy tales," he said in his hissing voice. "They find ruins and immediately assume they were built by their own kind. This is the wishful thinking of a young species that desperately wants to be important." Admiral Zekthul of the Kythera Collective was even more direct. His metallic voice carried no emotion as he spoke through his cybernetic implants. "Humans have been in space for less than 1,000 years. They are newcomers to the galaxy. The idea that they could be connected to ancient civilizations is illogical." The message was clear. The galaxy's major powers would not take human claims seriously. They saw humans as primitive newcomers who had barely learned to travel between stars. The idea that humans might be connected to something ancient and powerful was threatening to their view of the universe. Jake stood on the bridge of his ship, reading the dismissive messages from the various alien governments. Lisa stood beside him, her jaw clenched with anger. "They won't even look at the evidence," she said. "They've already made up their minds." "Then we'll have to find more evidence," Jake said. "Evidence so clear that even they can't ignore it." But deep down, Jake wondered if any amount of evidence would be enough. The galaxy had spent thousands of years believing that the Zeltharians and Kythera were the apex of civilization. The idea that humans might be the inheritors of something even greater was too dangerous for them to accept. What Jake didn't know was that his discovery was just the beginning. Across the galaxy, other human teams were making similar finds. And somewhere in the depths of space, ancient systems were beginning to wake up, waiting for the right signal to reveal the truth about humanity's forgotten past. Dr. Lisa Grant had not slept properly in 3 weeks. Her small laboratory aboard the research station Discovery was filled with data from 12 different archaeological sites scattered across the galaxy. Each site told the same impossible story, and each day brought new evidence that the galaxy's leaders refused to acknowledge. "Lisa, you need to eat something," said Ben Carter as he entered the lab carrying a tray of food. The young archaeologist looked tired too, but he was handling the stress better than most of the team. "I can't stop now," Lisa said, not looking up from her screens. "Look at this, Ben. Site 7 on Kepler 442b has the same architectural patterns as the ruins we found on Tau Ceti. Same building materials, same energy signatures, same humanoid proportions." Ben set the tray down and looked at the data. "And the writing? Amy's been working on that." Lisa pulled up another screen showing symbols from various sites. "The languages are different, but they all stem from the same root. It's like finding Latin, French, Spanish, and Italian. You can see they came from the same source, but they evolved separately over thousands of years." Amy Stone entered the lab at that moment, her face pale with exhaustion but her eyes bright with excitement. "Lisa, I think I've cracked part of the main inscription from the Vegas site." "What does it say?" Lisa asked. Amy consulted her tablet. "The translation is rough, but it says something like, 'Here the first wanderers rested before continuing their great journey among the stars.' It also mentions something about, 'When the darkness comes again, the children of Earth will know their heritage.'" Ben whistled softly. "Children of Earth. That's pretty specific." "There's more," Amy continued. "I found similar phrases at 6 other sites. They all refer to the builders as the first wanderers, and they all mention Earth by name. Not Terra, not Sol 3, but Earth using the exact same word humans use." Lisa felt her heart racing. "How many sites have we catalogued now?" 47, Ben said. "And we're finding new ones every week. Jake Morrison's crew just discovered another one in the Andromeda sector." The 3 scientists looked at each other. They all knew what the evidence was pointing to, but it seemed impossible. How could ancient humans have built a galactic civilization millions of years ago? "We need to be careful about how we present this," Lisa said finally. "The Galactic Council is already dismissing our findings. If we come out and say that humans built all of this, they'll laugh us out of the galaxy," Amy finished. Or worse, Ben added. The Zeltharians are getting nervous about our discoveries. I heard they've been sending ships to investigate some of the sites we found. Lisa knew Ben was right. High Chancellor Vextar had been vocal about his displeasure with human archaeological teams. The Zeltharian Empire controlled most of the galaxy's trade routes by claiming ownership of ancient jump gates and technological ruins. If those ruins turned out to be human in origin, it would destroy the foundation of Zeltharian power. What about the Kythera? Amy asked. They're worse, Lisa said. At least the Zeltharians are open about not liking our discoveries. The Kythera are pretending to be interested while actively interfering with our research. 2 of our survey teams have reported equipment failures after Kythera ships were spotted in their systems. Ben pulled up a galactic map on the main screen. Red dots marked the locations of confirmed First Wanderer sites. Look at the pattern, he said. The sites form a network across the galaxy. They're positioned at strategic points along natural trade routes and near resource-rich systems. It's like they were building an infrastructure, Amy said. Roads and way stations for a galactic civilization. But where did they go? Lisa asked. You don't just abandon an entire galaxy's worth of infrastructure. Before anyone could answer, the communication system chimed. Captain Morrison's face appeared on the screen, and he looked grim. Lisa, we have a problem, Jake said. I just received word from Earth. The Galactic Council is voting on a resolution to ban human archaeological activities in sensitive areas of the galaxy. What's their justification? Lisa asked, though she already knew the answer. They claim we're disturbing important cultural sites and spreading false information about galactic history. Chancellor Vextar gave a speech yesterday calling our research dangerous propaganda designed to elevate a primitive species above their natural station. Amy clenched her fists. Primitive species? We've given them half a dozen technological breakthroughs just from studying these ruins. I know, Jake said. But the vote is tomorrow, and it looks like it's going to pass. The Zeltharians and Kythera have enough allies to push it through. Lisa felt anger building in her chest. Jake, we're on the verge of the greatest archaeological discovery in galactic history. These sites could revolutionize our understanding of how civilization developed in this galaxy. I understand that, Lisa. But the Council doesn't want to understand. They want us to stop asking questions that make them uncomfortable. After Jake signed off, the 3 scientists sat in silence for a long moment. Finally, Ben spoke up. So what do we do? Give up? No, Lisa said firmly. We keep working. We document everything we can before they shut us down. And we make sure the truth gets preserved, even if the galaxy isn't ready to hear it yet. What if we're wrong? Amy asked quietly. What if this is all just coincidence? What if humans really are just seeing patterns that aren't there? Lisa looked at the data covering her screens. 47 sites, all with the same architectural style, all built for humanoid inhabitants, all containing references to Earth and the First Wanderers. The mathematical probability of it being coincidence was so small it might as well be 0. We're not wrong, she said. The evidence is too clear. Humans were here before, millions of years ago. They built a galactic civilization that makes our current technology look like stone tools. Something happened to them, something that made them abandon everything and retreat to Earth. But what? Ben asked. I don't know, Lisa admitted. But I think we need to find out. Because if whatever happened to the First Wanderers is still out there. She didn't finish the sentence, but she didn't need to. They all understood. The ancient humans had been far more advanced than current galactic civilization, yet something had driven them away. If that threat still existed, the galaxy might need to remember its forgotten history sooner than anyone expected. Outside the laboratory windows, the stars continued their eternal dance, keeping their secrets. But on research stations and exploration ships across the galaxy, human scientists continued their work, piece by piece uncovering the truth about their species' incredible past. Soon, the galaxy would learn that humanity was not the newcomer they appeared to be. And whether the galaxy was ready or not, the children of Earth were about to reclaim their inheritance. Pete Davis wiped sweat from his forehead as he climbed out of the deep excavation pit. The twin suns of New Terra were setting, casting long shadows across the construction site where his engineering team had been building a new fusion power plant for the colony. "Still nothing?" asked his assistant, Maria Lopez, as she handed him a water bottle. "Worse than nothing," Pete said, taking a long drink. "There's definitely something down there, but it's not bedrock. It's artificial. Metal alloys I've never seen before, and they're interfering with our foundation sensors." New Terra was one of humanity's most successful colonies, home to nearly 2 million people. The planet had been settled 50 years ago, and now they needed more power to support the growing population. Pete's job was supposed to be simple: build a power plant. Instead, he had discovered something that made no sense. "How deep does it go?" Maria asked. "We've gone down 30 meters and haven't found the bottom yet. Whatever it is, it's huge." Pete looked back at the pit where his drilling equipment sat silent. "I'm going to have to call Sarah Blake. The colony administrator needs to know about this." Sarah Blake arrived an hour later with a team of scientists from the colony's research center. She was a practical woman who had helped plan the colony's development from the beginning, but even she looked puzzled as she stared into the excavation. "You're sure it's artificial?" she asked. "Look at this," Pete said, handing her a piece of metal they had extracted. "Perfect crystalline structure, no impurities, and it's completely resistant to cutting tools. This isn't natural." Dr. Karen White, the colony's chief scientist, ran a scanner over the metal fragment. "The composition is unlike anything in our databases. It's some kind of superalloy that shouldn't be possible with known materials science." "How old is it?" Sarah asked. Karen frowned at her readings. "The isotope decay suggests it's been here for at least 50,000 years. Possibly much longer." Sarah made a decision. "Clear the construction site. I want a full archaeological team down there tomorrow morning. And send a message to Earth, they need to know about this." The next morning, Pete found himself leading a much different kind of excavation. Instead of preparing for a power plant, his team was carefully uncovering what appeared to be the entrance to an underground facility. The metal structure seemed to go on forever in all directions. "There," said Dr. White, pointing to a section of the wall they had just uncovered. "That looks like a door." The door was massive, easily 3 meters tall and 2 meters wide. Its surface was covered with symbols that looked familiar but were hard to place. Unlike the ruins other human teams had found, this facility showed no signs of age or weathering. "How do we open it?" Pete asked. "I don't see any obvious controls," Dr. White said, running her hands over the smooth surface. "But there's definitely power running through the structure. My instruments are picking up energy readings." Maria was studying the symbols around the door frame. "These look like the markings they found at the Tau Ceti ruins. Dr. Grant published papers about them." Pete stepped closer to examine the door. As he approached, something unexpected happened. The symbols began to glow with a soft blue light. The team stepped back in surprise as the door split down the middle and slid open silently. "Motion sensors?" Pete asked. Dr. White checked her instruments. "No, it's not motion. It's responding to something else." She looked at Pete thoughtfully. "Try walking away from the door." Pete stepped back several meters. The door remained open. When Maria approached it, nothing happened. When Dr. White tried, the symbols stayed dark. But when Pete came close again, they lit up immediately. "It's responding to you specifically," Dr. White said. "But why?" They entered the facility carefully, with Pete leading the way. The corridors beyond the door were vast and pristine, lit by panels that activated as they walked past. The walls were covered with more symbols and what appeared to be star charts. "This place is enormous," Maria said, her voice echoing in the corridors. "It goes on for kilometers." They walked for nearly an hour before reaching what appeared to be a central chamber. The room was circular and dominated by a large crystalline structure in the center. As Pete approached it, the crystal began to glow and project images into the air above it. The holographic images showed star systems, planets, and what appeared to be historical records. But the most shocking element was the figures in the recordings. They were clearly human, not humanoid, but definitely human. They wore advanced clothing and operated technology far beyond anything the current galaxy possessed. "My God," Dr. White whispered. "Are those humans?" Pete said. "Ancient humans." The holographic records continued, showing a vast galactic civilization with humans at its center. They saw massive space stations, terraformed worlds, and fleets of ships that dwarfed anything in the current galaxy. But then the images changed, showing some kind of catastrophe. Dark shapes moved between the stars, and human worlds went silent one by one. The final images showed evacuation fleets fleeing toward the galaxy's edge. Most headed for a small blue world that the hologram labeled in ancient script. The translation appeared in modern English, Earth. "They're our ancestors," Sarah Blake said. She had been watching in silence, but now her voice was filled with awe. "Humans didn't come from Earth originally. We went back to Earth." The holographic record continued, showing the construction of hidden facilities like the one they were in. The narrator's voice was in an ancient human language, but somehow Pete could understand it. "When the darkness is defeated and the children of our children return to the stars, these vaults will awaken to serve them. The blood of the first wanderers will unlock what was hidden, and humanity will reclaim its birthright among the stars." Pete felt a chill run down his spine. The blood of the first wanderers. "That's why the door opened for me." "For all of us," Maria corrected. "We're all human. We all carry that genetic heritage." Dr. White was studying the control panels around the crystal. "This facility is incredibly advanced. The technology here is centuries ahead of anything the Zeltharians or Kythera have developed. If we could understand even a fraction of it." "We need to contact Earth immediately," Sarah said. "But carefully. If the Galactic Council finds out about this, they'll try to take it away from us," Pete finished. "Just like they're trying to stop our archaeological research." Sarah nodded grimly. "Send an encrypted message to Earth. Tell them we found something that changes everything." "And Pete?" "Yes. Keep this facility secret for now. We need time to understand what we've discovered before the galaxy finds out that humanity's true history is buried right under our feet." As they prepared to leave the facility, Pete took one last look at the holographic records still playing above the crystal. The images showed a human civilization that had spanned the galaxy, building the infrastructure that current species now fought to control. But something had driven them away, forcing them to hide and wait. Now humanity was returning to space, and the ancient systems were waking up. Pete had a feeling that the galaxy was about to learn that humans were not the newcomers they appeared to be. They were the children of the first wanderers, returning to claim an inheritance that had been waiting for them for millions of years. The question was, would the galaxy accept the truth, or would they fight to maintain the lie that had shaped galactic politics for thousands of years? The Galactic Council chambers on Proxima Station had never seen such tension. High Chancellor Vextar of the Zeltharian Empire sat rigid in his ornate chair, his golden scales catching the light as his tail lashed with barely controlled anger. Across the circular chamber, Admiral Zekthul of the Kythera Collective remained motionless, his cybernetic implants glowing softly as he processed incoming data streams. "The humans have gone too far," Vextar hissed, his forked tongue flicking out as he spoke. "Their latest claims are not just ridiculous, they are dangerous to galactic stability." Ambassador Helen Ward of the Human Federation sat calmly in her chair, though inside she was furious. The evidence from New Terra had been transmitted to Earth just days ago, and already the galaxy's major powers were moving to suppress it. Helen had been Earth's voice in the Council for 10 years, and she had never seen such coordinated opposition. "The evidence speaks for itself," Helen said, keeping her voice steady. "The facility on New Terra contains technology and records that clearly show human presence in this galaxy millions of years ago. We are not claiming superiority, we are simply presenting facts." Admiral Zekthul's metallic voice cut through the chamber. "Facts? You present holograms and ancient metal, Then claim your species ruled the galaxy before achieving spaceflight. This is the fantasy of a young race desperate for importance. The genetic scanners confirmed it, Helen replied. The facility responded only to human biological signatures. The technology activated when humans approached it, but remained dormant for other species. Convenient, Vextar said with a sneer. How easy it would be to fabricate such evidence. Humans have had access to the site for weeks before allowing neutral observers. Helen felt her temper rising. Are you accusing humanity of fraud? I am stating the obvious, Vextar replied. For thousands of years, my people have maintained the ancient trade routes and jump gates that connect this galaxy. These systems have always responded to Ziltharian control frequencies. The idea that they were built by primitive mammals is absurd. Admiral Zekthul nodded in agreement. The Kythera Collective has studied galactic history for millennia. Our records show no evidence of advanced human civilization. Humans evolved on Earth and achieved spaceflight 800 years ago. This is established fact. Then explain the ruins, Helen said. 47 sites across the galaxy, all with the same architecture, all built for humanoid inhabitants, all containing references to Earth. Coincidence, Vextar said dismissively. Or selective interpretation by researchers who see what they want to see. Helen looked around the chamber at the representatives of dozens of species. Most avoided her gaze. The smaller species were afraid to oppose the Ziltharians and Kythera. The larger ones had their own reasons for supporting the status quo. Dr. Kevin Ross, who had been allowed to present the scientific evidence, stood up from the observers section. If I may address the council, he said formally. Vextar's eyes narrowed. The human scientist may speak briefly. Kevin activated a holographic projector. These are star maps from the new Terra facility, compared with current galactic navigation charts. The ancient maps show the locations of every major jump gate in the galaxy, including 17 that were only discovered in the last century. The hologram displayed a perfect overlay between ancient and modern star charts. Murmurs ran through the chamber as representatives realized the implications. The maps also show trade routes that follow gravitational currents we only discovered 50 years ago, Kevin continued. And they mark the locations of resource deposits that our surveys have confirmed but haven't announced publicly yet. Impressive fabrication, Admiral Zekthul said. But not impossible with current technology. What about this? Kevin asked, switching to a new display. Genetic analysis of atmospheric traces from 17 different archaeological sites. All show the same DNA markers, human DNA that's been degraded over millions of years. Contamination from human research teams, Vextar said quickly. From teams that visited the sites after we took the samples? Kevin replied. The atmospheric samples were collected by automated probes before any human had set foot on those worlds. The chamber fell silent for a moment. Then Vextar rose from his chair, his full height making him tower over the human delegation. Enough, he said. The Ziltharian Empire has maintained galactic peace for 3,000 years. We have protected the trade routes, defended weaker species, and preserved the ancient technology that keeps civilization functioning. We will not allow the fantasies of an upstart species to undermine this stability. The Kythera Collective agrees, Admiral Zekthul added. Human claims threaten the established order that has brought prosperity to the galaxy. They must be stopped. Helen stood up. Are you threatening humanity? We are protecting the galaxy from dangerous delusions, Vextar replied. The Council will vote to ban human archaeological activities and suppress the distribution of these false claims. And if we refuse? Helen asked. Vextar's smile was cold. Then humanity will discover how isolated a young species can become in a hostile galaxy. The vote was held 2 hours later. 37 species voted to ban human archaeological research and declare their historical claims unsubstantiated and potentially harmful to galactic stability. Only 12 species voted against the ban, mostly smaller worlds that had benefited from human trade and protection. Helen watched the vote tally with a mixture of anger and sadness. The galaxy was choosing comfortable lies over uncomfortable truths. But she also felt a spark of pride. Humanity had survived worse odds before. "This is not over," she told Vextar as the session ended. "For your sake, I hope it is," the Chancellor replied. Young species that push too hard often find themselves extinct. But as Helen and Kevin returned to their ship, messages were already streaming in from across human space. On New Terra, the ancient facility had activated new systems overnight. Human colonies were reporting similar discoveries on dozens of worlds. And on Earth, deep space sensors were detecting something strange, ancient signals coming from the outer rim of the galaxy. Dr. Kevin Ross looked at the data streaming across his tablet as their ship headed back to Earth. "Helen, I think we're past the point of no return." "What do you mean?" "The New Terra facility isn't just a museum. It's still connected to other systems across the galaxy. Our presence there seems to have triggered some kind of awakening sequence." Helen felt a chill of anticipation and fear. "What kind of sequence?" "I don't know yet. But I think the galaxy is about to find out that humanity's ancestors left more than just ruins behind. They left a legacy that's been waiting millions of years for their children to return." Outside the ship's windows, the stars seemed brighter somehow, as if ancient lights were beginning to wake up across the galaxy. The Council could vote to suppress the truth, but the truth had a way of making itself known regardless of what politicians wanted. Humanity's real history was about to reveal itself, whether the galaxy was ready or not. Captain Jake Morrison stood in the control room of the ancient facility on Kepler 442b, watching his team work with equipment that was older than most galactic civilizations. 3 weeks had passed since the Galactic Council had banned human archaeological research, but Jake had decided that some discoveries were too important to abandon. "The beacon is almost ready," said Ben Carter, his hands moving carefully over controls that had awakened when humans entered the facility. "But Jake, are you sure about this? Once we activate it, there's no going back." Jake looked at the massive crystalline structure in the center of the chamber. According to the ancient records they had translated, it was a communication device that could send signals across the entire galaxy instantly. The first wanderers had built a network of these beacons to coordinate their vast civilization. "The Council made their choice," Jake said. "They want to ignore the truth and threaten humanity for discovering it. Maybe it's time they learned what they're really dealing with." Dr. Lisa Grant looked up from her research station. "The genetic locks on the other facilities are responding to the beacon's preparation sequence. We're detecting activation signals from sites across 17 star systems." Amy Stone was monitoring communication channels from her position near the entrance. "Jake, we're getting reports from human colonies throughout the sector. Ancient technology is coming online everywhere. Terraforming systems, defensive grids, manufacturing facilities, it's all activating at once." Jake felt the weight of the decision he was about to make. The ancient humans had clearly built safeguards into their technology, ensuring that only their descendants could access it. But with that access came responsibility and danger. "Status on galactic communications?" Jake asked. "The Zeltharians are sending threatening messages to every human colony," Amy reported. "They're demanding that we shut down all archaeological activities immediately. The Kythera are mobilizing their fleets." "Then we're out of time for subtle approaches," Jake said. He walked over to the beacon controls where Ben was waiting. "Activate it." Ben pressed his hand against the genetic scanner. The crystal structure began to glow with increasing intensity, and holographic displays showed the signal propagating across the galaxy at impossible speeds. The effect was immediate and dramatic. On New Terra, Pete Davis watched in amazement as the underground facility expanded before his eyes. Walls slid apart to reveal vast chambers filled with technology that had been dormant for millions of years. Manufacturing systems began producing materials that didn't exist in current galactic science. Terraforming equipment started optimizing the planet's atmosphere and soil composition. "Sarah, you need to see this," Pete called to the colony administrator. "The facility is building something. Some kind of spaceship, but it's larger than anything in the current galactic fleet." Sarah Blake joined him at the observation window overlooking the main construction bay. The ship taking shape below them was sleek and organic-looking, grown rather than built. "How long until it's complete?" "At this rate, maybe 6 hours, Pete said in disbelief. The manufacturing systems are working at speeds that should be impossible. Similar scenes were playing out across human space. On Mars, ancient mining equipment buried beneath the polar ice caps came to life, extracting resources with efficiency that made current technology look primitive. On Europa, terraforming systems began converting the frozen moon into a garden world. But the most dramatic changes were happening in space itself. The ancient jump gates that connected the galaxy's trade routes had always been considered neutral technology, available to any species with the right activation codes. Now they were displaying new behaviors. Admiral Danny Clark, commanding the human battleship Stellar Phoenix, watched his sensors in disbelief as the Vega jump gate responded to his ship's approach. "Sir, the gate is activating without any input from us," reported his communications officer, Lieutenant Kate Mitchell. "It's recognizing our ship's signature and offering priority routing." "Priority routing to where?" Danny asked. "Everywhere, sir. The entire jumpgate network is treating us as authorized users with unlimited access." At the same time, Zeltharian and Kythera ships were discovering that the gates no longer responded to their control codes. Trade routes that had been the foundation of galactic commerce for thousands of years were suddenly available only to human vessels. High Chancellor Vextar received the news aboard his flagship, the Dominion. His golden scales darkened with rage as his communications officer delivered the report. "Every jump gate in our territory has gone dark, Chancellor. Our fleets are stranded in their current systems. This is human sabotage," Vextar hissed. "Deploy our emergency faster-than-light drives. We will reach Earth and end this rebellion." But when the Zeltharian ships attempted to use their own FTL technology, they discovered that it too was failing. The ancient technological infrastructure that underpinned galactic civilization had been built by the first wanderers, and now it was recognizing only their descendants. Admiral Zekthul of the Kythera Collective faced the same problem. His cybernetic implants processed the tactical situation with cold logic, and the conclusion was unavoidable. Human claims were accurate, he announced to his fleet commanders. Current galactic technology is built on first wanderer foundations. If humans control that foundation, they control galactic civilization. The revelation spread across the galaxy within hours. Species that had dismissed human claims as fantasy now found themselves dependent on human goodwill for basic transportation and communication. The jump gates would transport alien ships, but only if human controllers approved the transit. On Earth, President Maria Lopez convened an emergency session with her advisors. The situation was unprecedented in galactic history. "Reports are coming in from everywhere," said General Linda Barnes, the Earth Defense Force commander. "Ancient defense systems are activating around every human colony. Energy shields, automated weapons platforms, sensor networks, it's like the first wanderers prepared for this exact scenario." "What's the galaxy's response?" President Lopez asked. Tony Garcia, the Secretary of State, consulted his tablet. "Panic, mostly. The Zeltharian Empire is threatening war, but their fleets can't reach us. The Kythera are demanding negotiations. Smaller species are asking for protection from the major powers." "And the technology itself?" Lopez asked. "Are we in control of it?" Dr. Ross, who had been studying the activation patterns, shook his head. "Not exactly. The systems are responding to human genetic signatures, but they seem to have their own objectives. They're optimizing human colonies, building defensive installations, and constructing new ships. It's like they're preparing for something." Kate Mitchell, who had been monitoring deep space sensors, looked up from her station. "Ma'am, we're detecting massive energy signatures beyond the galactic rim. Whatever drove the first wanderers away from the galaxy might still be out there." President Lopez felt a chill of understanding. The ancient humans hadn't just built a galactic civilization, they had built it as a defense against something from outside the galaxy. Now their descendants were back, and the defenses were awakening. "Get me a communication channel to the Galactic Council," Lopez ordered. It's time they understood that humanity isn't trying to conquer the galaxy. "We're trying to save it." But even as she spoke, reports were coming in of ancient facilities activating in empty space, building massive structures whose purpose no one understood. The first wanderers had left more than ruins and technology behind. They had left a mission, and their descendants were about to discover what it was. The galaxy had spent thousands of years believing that the Zeltharians and Kythera were the apex of civilization. Now they were learning that they had been children playing with toys left behind by giants. And those giants had returned to reclaim their inheritance just in time for a threat that was older than any current galactic species could imagine. High Chancellor Vexstar had ruled the Zeltharian Empire for 40 years, but he had never felt as powerless as he did now. His flagship Dominion hung dead in space near the Proxima jump gate, its engines silent and its weapons offline. Around him, the greatest fleet in Zeltharian history sat helpless, dependent on human mercy for even basic life support. Status report, Vexstar demanded, though he already knew the answer would be grim. Fleet Commander Sekatao looked up from his instruments, his scales pale with stress. All jump gates remain unresponsive to our control codes. Our faster-than-light drives are operating at only 30% efficiency. The ancient power relays that feed our ship's main systems are shutting down one by one. And the humans? Their ships are moving freely throughout the galaxy. The jump gates respond to them instantly, and the ancient defense platforms are providing them with protection and supplies. Vexstar's claws scraped against his command chair. For 3,000 years, the Zeltharian Empire had controlled galactic trade by claiming ownership of the ancient jump gates and technological infrastructure. They had built their power on the foundation laid by the first wanderers, never imagining that the builders might return. Chancellor called his communications officer. "We're receiving a transmission from the human fleet." "Put it through," Vexstar said reluctantly. Admiral Danny Clark appeared on the main screen, standing on the bridge of the Stellar Phoenix. Behind him, Vexstar could see displays showing the positions of human ships throughout the galaxy. There were far more of them than there had been just days ago. "Chancellor Vexstar," Danny said formally. "I'm calling to offer assistance to your stranded vessels." "Assistance?" Vexstar's voice dripped with suspicion. "Food, water, medical supplies, and safe passage to Zeltharian space. Your crews have been without proper supplies for 72 hours. The offer was generous, but it came with an unmistakable message: humanity now controlled the resources that kept galactic civilization functioning. Vexstar felt his empire crumbling around him. "What do you want in return?" he asked. "Recognition," Danny replied simply. "Recognition that humanity has a legitimate claim to the technology built by our ancestors. Recognition that we're not the primitive newcomers you've always claimed we were." Before Vexstar could respond, another transmission arrived from Admiral Zekthul of the Kythera Collective. The cybernetic leader's voice was as emotionless as always, but there was something different in his tone. "The Kythera Collective requests immediate negotiations with human leadership," Zekthul announced. "Our analysis confirms that current galactic technology is built on First Wanderer foundations. Continued conflict serves no logical purpose." Vexstar felt his last hopes dying. If the Kythera were ready to negotiate, it meant they had concluded that opposing humanity was futile. The technological superiority that had made the Kythera Collective a galactic power depended entirely on reverse-engineered First Wanderer technology that now responded only to human genetic signatures. On Earth, President Maria Lopez was dealing with a crisis of success. The ancient systems had awakened beyond humanity's wildest expectations, but with that awakening came responsibilities that no one had anticipated. "The manufacturing facilities on New Terra have completed their first ship," reported General Linda Barnes. "It's unlike anything we've ever seen. The technology is easily 1,000 years ahead of current galactic standards." "What about crew requirements?" Lopez asked. "That's the strange part. The ship seems designed to operate with minimal human input. The ancient AI systems are still functional and willing to serve, but only under human authority." Dr. Kevin Ross looked up from his analysis of the global situation. "Ma'am, we're facing requests for aid from 47 different species. The breakdown of the jump gate network has disrupted food supplies, medical shipments, and emergency services across the galaxy. What's our capacity to help?" Lopez asked. "Theoretically, almost unlimited," Ross replied. The ancient manufacturing systems can produce anything we need in quantities that boggle the mind. The real question is whether we should. Tony Garcia, the Secretary of State, understood the political implications. If we become the galaxy's supplier of essential services, we effectively become its rulers. That's a level of responsibility I'm not sure we're ready for. The alternative is letting billions of beings suffer because their governments were too proud to accept the truth about human heritage, General Barnes pointed out. Lopez made her decision. We help. But we do it openly and with conditions. Any species that accepts our aid must acknowledge human sovereignty over First Wanderer technology and agree to peaceful coexistence. The response from across the galaxy was swift and desperate. The Andorian Trade Federation was the first to accept, followed by the Rigelian Republic and dozens of smaller species. Within days, human ships were delivering supplies and restoring services to worlds that had been cut off from galactic commerce. But the most significant change was happening in space itself. The ancient defense systems weren't just protecting human colonies, they were building new installations at strategic points throughout the galaxy. Massive space stations grew from nothing, their purpose unclear but their power unmistakable. Kate Mitchell, now serving as Admiral Clark's science officer, studied the sensor readings from one of the new installations. Admiral, these stations are unlike anything in our databases. They're generating energy levels that exceed the output of most stars. Any idea what they're for? Danny asked. The computer cores are encrypted beyond our current ability to crack, but I'm detecting scanning beams pointed toward the galactic rim. It's like they're watching for something. Danny felt a chill of realization. The ancient threat. Whatever drove the first wanderers away. It's possible, Kate agreed. The stations are definitely designed for defense, but against what kind of enemy would require this level of preparation? Meanwhile, in the Kythera home system, Admiral Zekthal was reaching similar conclusions. His analysis of the awakening ancient systems had revealed patterns that suggested a specific purpose. The first wanderers did not abandon this galaxy by choice, he announced to his command staff. They were driven out by an external force. The current awakening suggests that force may be returning. What evidence supports this conclusion? Asked his tactical officer. The defensive installations being constructed are designed to detect and repel invasion from intergalactic space. The manufacturing priorities emphasize weapons and shields rather than civilian infrastructure. The ancient AI systems are preparing for war. Zekthal processed the implications with cold logic. The humans have not reclaimed their heritage to conquer the galaxy. They have returned to defend it. This revelation changed everything. Across the galaxy, species that had opposed human claims began to reconsider their positions. If humanity was preparing to defend the galaxy against an ancient threat, then opposition to human leadership might be suicidal. President Lopez received the first formal surrender 3 days later. The Centauri Alliance, a confederation of 12 star systems, formally recognized human authority over all First Wanderer technology in exchange for protection and continued access to galactic commerce. It's happening faster than we expected, Tony Garcia reported. The Rigelian Republic has requested a formal alliance. The Vegan Trade Union is offering to become a human protectorate. Even some Zeltharian systems are breaking away from the Empire to negotiate separately. And the major powers? Lopez asked. Vexstar is holding out, but his empire is fragmenting. The Kythera are requesting a formal summit. They seem to understand something about the situation that they're not sharing yet. As if summoned by their conversation, Admiral Zekthal's image appeared on the main communication screen. His cybernetic implants glowed more brightly than usual, suggesting intense data processing. President Lopez, he said without preamble. The Kythera Collective has reached a conclusion. Humanity must accept leadership of galactic defense immediately. Our long-range sensors have detected anomalous readings beyond the galactic rim. The ancient threat is returning. Lopez felt her heart racing. How long do we have? Unknown. But the first Wanderer systems are accelerating their construction schedules. They believe contact is imminent. The galaxy had spent weeks learning that humanity wasn't the newcomer species they had claimed to be. Now they were about to discover that humanity's return wasn't just about reclaiming ancient heritage, it was about preparing for a war that had been delayed for millions of years. And this time, humanity wouldn't be running away. The Great Assembly Hall on Earth had been built to host meetings between human nations, but today it held representatives from across the galaxy. President Maria Lopez looked out at the gathering and marveled at how quickly everything had changed. Just months ago, these same species had dismissed humanity as primitive newcomers. Now they were here as supplicants, seeking protection and alliance. High Chancellor Vextar sat in the front row, his golden scales dulled with the humiliation of defeat. The Zeltharian Empire had lost two-thirds of its territory as member systems broke away to join the growing human coalition. His once mighty fleet was scattered across the galaxy, dependent on human goodwill for fuel and supplies. The situation is desperate, Vextar admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. The jump gates respond only to human authorization. Our trade routes have collapsed. My people are starving on 17 worlds because we cannot transport food through our own territory. Ambassador Helen Ward, who had once fought Vextar in the Galactic Council, now found herself in the strange position of negotiating his surrender. The terms are simple, Chancellor. Full recognition of human sovereignty over First Wanderer technology, reparations for the archaeological sites your forces damaged, and integration of your remaining territories into the Human Protection Zone. And in return, your people will be fed, protected, and given full citizenship rights in the new galactic order. The ancient systems don't distinguish between humans and other species once they accept human authority. Vextar's pride warred with necessity. His empire was dying, but accepting human protection meant admitting that everything his people had believed about galactic hierarchy was wrong. Admiral Zekthul sat nearby, his cybernetic implants processing data streams from across the galaxy. Unlike Vextar, the Kythera leader had adapted quickly to the new reality. Chancellor, logic suggests immediate acceptance. The alternative is extinction. Easy words from someone whose species has already surrendered their independence, Vextar replied bitterly. The Kythera collective has formed a strategic alliance, Zekthul corrected. We contribute our technological expertise and manufacturing capacity. In return, we receive protection and access to First Wanderer databases that will advance our development by millennia. President Lopez stood at the central podium, addressing the assembly. The choice is yours to make freely. But understand that time is running short. Our deep space sensors are detecting movement beyond the galactic rim. Whatever drove the first wanderers away is returning, and we need to be ready. Dr. Kevin Ross activated a holographic display showing the latest sensor readings. These energy signatures are unlike anything in our databases. They're massive, numerous, and heading toward our galaxy at speeds that suggest faster-than-light capability far beyond our own. The assembled representatives stirred uneasily. Many had been hoping that the ancient threat was just human propaganda designed to justify their takeover of galactic civilization. How long? Asked Ambassador Trill of the Andorian Trade Federation. The ancient systems estimate 18 months until first contact, Ross replied. Maybe less. General Linda Barnes took the podium next. The First Wanderer defense systems are working around the clock to prepare. But they were designed to work with a unified galactic civilization, not the fractured political landscape we have now. She activated tactical displays showing the defensive preparations taking place across the galaxy. Massive space fortresses were under construction at key strategic points. Ancient shipyards were producing vessels with capabilities that exceeded anything in recorded galactic history. But the preparations were focused on human-controlled space. The defense grid requires coordination and resource sharing on a scale never before attempted, Barnes continued. Systems that refuse to integrate will be left defenseless when the enemy arrives. The message was clear. Join the human coalition or face the ancient threat alone. Ambassador Krell of the Vegan Trade Union was the first to speak. The trade union formally requests full integration into the Human Protection Zone. We offer our commercial networks and manufacturing capabilities in service of galactic defense. Similar declarations followed from dozens of smaller species. But the major powers remained silent. President Lopez turned her attention to the holdouts. Chancellor Vextar, Admiral Zekthul, your decision affects billions of beings. What will it be? Zekthal's response was immediate. The Kythera Collective has already committed to full alliance. Our technological expertise is at humanity's disposal. All eyes turned to Vextar. The Zeltharian Chancellor sat motionless for long moments, his inner struggle visible in the tension of his posture. Finally, he stood. The Zeltharian Empire. He began, then stopped and started again. The Zeltharian people accept human protection and authority. We offer our knowledge of galactic trade routes and our remaining military assets in service of the common defense. The hall erupted in surprised murmurs. The proud Zeltharian Empire, which had dominated galactic politics for thousands of years, had just surrendered unconditionally to a species they had considered primitive newcomers. But Lopez wasn't finished. There's something else you all need to understand. The first Wanderer systems aren't just preparing for defense, they're preparing for evacuation. The hall fell silent. Dr. Ross activated new displays showing massive construction projects in empty space. These are ARC ships, each capable of carrying millions of beings. The ancient systems are building them as a contingency plan. Evacuation to where? Asked Ambassador Trill. The Andromeda Galaxy, Ross replied. The first Wanderers established colonies there before the ancient threat forced them to retreat. If the defense of this galaxy fails, the ARC ships will carry galactic civilization to safety. The implications were staggering. Humanity wasn't just offering protection, they were offering salvation. The choice wasn't between independence and submission, but between cooperation and extinction. Carl Adams, Earth's new Secretary of Galactic Affairs, stood to address the assembly. Integration isn't about conquest. It's about survival. The first Wanderers learned that unity is strength. They built their technology to respond to their descendants because they knew that only unified leadership could coordinate an effective defense. But why humans? Vextar asked, the question that had been troubling him since the revelation began. Why did they choose us? Helen Ward answered. They didn't choose us. We are them. Humanity isn't just descended from the first Wanderers, we are the first Wanderers, returned from exile. The genetic locks aren't recognizing strangers. They're recognizing family coming home. The truth hit the assembled representatives like a physical blow. The species they had spent millennia looking down upon as primitive newcomers were actually the children of the galaxy's greatest civilization, returned to reclaim their birthright just in time to face an ancient enemy. Over the following days, the remaining holdout species fell in line one by one. The Rigelian Republic offered their advanced sensor networks. The Centauri Alliance contributed their knowledge of ancient ruins. Even the isolated Tau Ceti Confederacy emerged from centuries of isolationism to join the growing coalition. But as the galaxy united under human leadership, the ancient threat grew closer. Deep space sensors detected massive structures emerging from dark space beyond the galactic rim. Whatever had driven humanity's ancestors into exile was returning, and this time there would be no retreat. The galaxy that had once dismissed humanity as irrelevant now depended entirely on human leadership for survival. The irony wasn't lost on anyone, but there was no time for regrets. The ancient enemy was coming, and the children of the first Wanderers would face them with the combined strength of every galactic civilization. The question was whether millions of years of preparation would be enough to finally defeat an enemy that had once conquered the galaxy's greatest civilization. 6 months after the Great Assembly, the galaxy had transformed beyond recognition. President Maria Lopez stood in the command center of the massive orbital station that now served as the capital of the United Galactic Federation. Through the vast windows, she could see the construction fleets working day and night to complete the defensive grid that would protect every inhabited world in the galaxy. Status report, she requested from General Linda Barnes, who had become the supreme military commander of the combined galactic forces. The integration is proceeding ahead of schedule, Barnes reported. The Zeltharian trade networks have been fully incorporated into our logistics system. The Kythera technological databases have accelerated our understanding of first Wanderer systems by decades. Even the most reluctant species are now contributing to the defense effort. Lopez nodded with satisfaction. The Heritage Accords had established a framework that balanced human authority with respect for other species' autonomy. Rather than ruling as conquerors, humanity had chosen to lead as protectors and guides. Carl Adams, the Secretary of Galactic Affairs, joined them at the central display showing the galaxy-wide preparation efforts. The reparations program is working better than expected. Species that damaged archaeological sites are competing to provide the most valuable contributions to make up for their past actions. And the holdouts? Lopez asked. Down to just 3 isolated systems, Adams replied. They're too small to affect the overall defense, and they'll be protected whether they cooperate or not. The ancient systems don't distinguish between willing and unwilling when it comes to preservation of life. Dr. Kevin Ross approached with the latest intelligence reports. Ma'am, we've made a breakthrough in translating the final First Wanderer archives. We now know what we're facing. The command center fell silent as Ross activated the holographic display. Images appeared showing creatures unlike anything in current galactic databases, beings of pure energy contained within mechanical shells, capable of consuming entire star systems to fuel their expansion. They call themselves the Devourers, Ross explained. They exist outside normal spacetime, moving between galaxies like islands. They've consumed hundreds of civilizations across cosmic history. How did the first Wanderers fight them? Barnes asked. They didn't, Ross replied grimly. The First War lasted 1,000 years and ended with humanity's retreat to the galactic edge. But they learned from that defeat. The defensive systems they built aren't designed to fight the Devourers directly, they're designed to hide the galaxy from them. Lopez felt a chill of understanding. A cloak. Exactly. The massive installations we've been building will generate a field that masks the galaxy's energy signature. To the Devourers, it will appear as empty space. Admiral Danny Clark, who had been monitoring the fleet preparations, looked up from his station. What about the Ark ships? Insurance, Ross said. If the cloak fails, the Arks can evacuate the galaxy's population to the colonies in Andromeda. The first Wanderers learned that sometimes the best victory is living to fight another day. The plan was elegant in its simplicity, but it required perfect coordination across thousands of star systems. Fortunately, the galaxy had never been more united. High Chancellor Vextar, now serving as the Zeltharian representative to the Galactic Council, had adapted to his new role with surprising grace. His knowledge of galactic trade routes had proven invaluable in coordinating resource distribution for the defense project. The final power conduits are being installed in the Zeltharian sectors, he reported during the daily briefing. My people have embraced their role in the defense network. They find purpose in protecting rather than dominating. Admiral Zekthal's transformation had been even more dramatic. The Kythera collective had integrated so completely with the human command structure that the distinction between the species was becoming meaningless. The Kythera manufacturing nodes have exceeded production targets by 40%, he announced. Integration with First Wanderer systems has enhanced our capabilities beyond previous calculations. But the most remarkable change was in the smaller species that had once been marginalized by the major powers. Under human leadership, they had found their voices and their strengths. Ambassador Trill of the Andorian Trade Federation had become the coordinator for civilian evacuation procedures. Kate Mitchell, now serving as the Director of Galactic Engineering, worked closely with representatives from dozens of species to manage the massive construction projects. The beauty of this system, Mitchell explained to a gathering of planetary governors, is that everyone contributes what they do best. The Androians handle logistics, the Rigelians manage sensors, the Kythera build the technology, and the Zeltharians coordinate distribution. Humanity provides leadership and access to the ancient systems, but the real work is being done by all of us together. The Heritage Accords had established principles that went far beyond simple military alliance. They created a framework for permanent cooperation based on mutual respect and shared responsibility. Species that had spent millennia competing for resources and territory were learning to work together for their common survival. Tony Garcia, now serving as the ambassador for interspecies relations, had been instrumental in creating the cultural exchange programs that were breaking down centuries of prejudice and mistrust. It's remarkable, he told Lopez during one of their regular meetings. Species that used to see each other as natural enemies are forming friendships and partnerships. The threat from outside has made everyone realize how much we have in common. But even as the galaxy united, the ancient enemy drew closer. Deep space sensors detected the Devourer fleet emerging from dark space at the galaxy's rim. The energy signatures were even more massive than the first Wanderer records had suggested. "They've grown stronger," Dr. Ross reported with obvious concern. "The enemy fleet is 3 times larger than what the first Wanderers faced millions of years ago." "Will the cloak hold?" Lopez asked. "Unknown. The ancient systems are confident, but they're basing their calculations on outdated intelligence." General Barnes studied the tactical displays showing the approaching threat. "How long until they reach the outer systems?" 8 months, Ross replied. "But the good news is that our preparations are ahead of schedule. The cloak will be operational in 6 months, with 2 months to spare for testing and adjustments." As the final preparations entered their most critical phase, humanity found itself in a position its leaders had never imagined. They weren't just defending Earth or human colonies, they were responsible for the survival of galactic civilization itself. The species that had once dismissed them as primitive newcomers now looked to them for salvation. The irony wasn't lost on anyone, but it had become irrelevant. What mattered was that the galaxy had finally learned the lesson the first Wanderers had died to teach: unity was the only path to survival. On the day the galactic cloak was activated, representatives from every species gathered to watch the moment that would determine their collective fate. The massive installations around the galaxy's rim hummed to life, generating a field that would hide their civilization from the cosmic predators that had driven humanity into exile millions of years ago. President Lopez stood before the assembled delegates, looking out at beings from 1,000 worlds united in common purpose. "Today we honor the memory of the first Wanderers by completing the work they began," she said. "But this isn't just about hiding from an ancient enemy. It's about proving that different species can work together to build something greater than any of us could achieve alone." The cloak held. The Devourer fleet passed through the galaxy's space without detecting the trillions of beings hidden beneath the ancient shroud. For the first time in cosmic history, a galaxy had successfully hidden from the predators that stalked the universe. But as the threat receded, the galaxy didn't return to its old ways. The unity forged in crisis had become something permanent and precious. The Heritage Accords evolved into a true galactic constitution, establishing principles of cooperation and mutual protection that would guide civilization for millions of years to come. Humanity had reclaimed its heritage not as conquerors, but as the species that remembered how to bring others together. The galaxy that had once regretted forgetting them now knew it could never afford to lose them again. And in the deep space monitoring stations at the galaxy's edge, human descendants kept watch for the next threat, knowing that whatever came, they would face it together with the greatest alliance in cosmic history.